So $200 billion. dollars.
It's a number that's almost impossible to really visualize, isn't it?
It really is.
I mean, if you stacked it in $100 bills, you would probably reach the International Space Station.
It's the kind of number you usually reserve for the GDP of a mid-sized country. But today, that specific figure, 200 billion, it pops up as the connective tissue between two completely different stories we're diving into.
That's right. On one hand, you have the corporate world, specifically Amazon, betting that sum on the future infrastructure of artificial intelligence.
Then on the other.
On the other, you have the political world, with President Trump using that exact same figure to try and reshape the American housing market.
It's a fascinating parallel. We're seeing these massive capital allocations, historical levels of spending, being deployed to try and force specific outcomes.
Whether it's forcing mortgage rates down or, forcing the next generation of AI into existence.
And that's really the mission for this deep dive. We're looking at where the money is going. We've got a really stacked lineup of sources today, from GeekWire on Amazon, The Guardian on Elon Musk's latest galactic merger.
Right, and market analysis from the Straits Times, MarketWise,
Right.
and even a look at why central banks are suddenly dumping Bitcoin for gold bars.
We've even got a palate cleanser at the end involving William Shatner and some very questionable Super Bowl commercials. Yeah. But we have to start with the heavy hitters. We need to talk about Amazon.
The big spend.
The big spend. I was reading this report from GeekWire, and the headline number just jumps right out at you. Amazon CEO Andy Jassy is defending a plan to spend $200 billion in capital expenditures in 2026.
Just for context, their AWS revenue was great.
Yeah, $35.6 billion, up 24%. But he's turning around and spending multiples of that on infrastructure.
It is a staggering amount of reinvestment. And the market's reaction was, well, it was immediate and pretty brutal. Shares dropped 10% after hours.
Because of the cash flow, right? Usually when a company makes $35 billion, investors expect a nice dividend or
a stock buyback,
Yep.
Something for them. Exactly.
Yeah.
Investors love revenue growth, but they love free cash flow. The money left over to return to shareholders. Even more.
So what happened to it?
Well, Amazon generated almost $140 billion in cash from operations, which is a monster number. But because Jassy is plowing nearly every cent of that back into building data centers, buying chips, laying fiber,
The free cash flow number just
essentially evaporated.
He's basically betting the farm. But reading Jassy's defense of this, he doesn't sound like a man who's gambling blindly. He sounds like someone who sees something the market is missing. He used this barbell analogy that I thought was really insightful.
It's the crucial part of his argument. He sees the current AI market as a barbell. If you, visualize a barbell in a gym, you've got the heavy weights on the ends and then the bar in the middle.
Okay, let's unpack the ends first. What's on the left side?
On one end of the barbell, you have the research labs, the OpenAIs, the Anthropics, the deep tech firms. As Jassy put it, they're spending gobs and gobs of compute.
It's just burning through it.
They're training these massive foundation models, burning through GPUs like there's no tomorrow. That demand is insatiable right now.
Right. And then you jump to the other end of the barbell, the right side.
The routine tasks. This is the simple stuff. Customer service bots, basic business process automation, coding assistants that auto-complete your scripts, the low-hanging fruit. That demand is also massive because it's easy to implement.
Okay, so you have the super high-end research and the day-to-day grunt work. But a barbell has a handle. What's in the middle?
That is the missing middle, and that is exactly where Jassy is placing this $200 billion bet. He argues that the core enterprise production workloads, the complex, messy, heavy-lifting applications that run Fortune 500 companies, haven't moved to AI yet.
We're talking about the boring but profitable stuff, right? Like supply chain optimization, complex logistics.
Predictive maintenance for airlines. Precisely. And the reason they haven't moved yet is complicated. It's security concerns. It's fear of hallucinations where the AI just makes things up.
Right.
And it's simply the difficulty of integrating new tech into old legacy systems. Jassy's point is that this middle section, it hasn't arrived yet.
But, and this is the $200 billion but, he believes that when it does arrive, it will be the largest and most durable part of the entire AI market.
That's the thesis. He explicitly called it a seminal opportunity. He said this isn't a quixotic top-line grab. which is a very polite CEO way of
Not,
saying.
not just doing this for vanity metrics.
Exactly. He sees it as an existential necessity. If Amazon doesn't have the capacity ready, the data centers built, the chips racked and powered on, when that middle market wakes up, they lose the future.
It's the classic "if you build it, they will come" strategy, but scaled up to the GDP of a small nation. And he's not the only one, is he?
Not at all. Google is earmarking around 180 billion. Meta is over 100 billion. It's an absolute arms race.
Wow.
Everyone is terrified of being left behind, so they're overbuilding now to ensure they own the rails for the next decade.
But here's where the story gets wild. While Amazon and Google are trying to pave the earth with data centers to handle this load, we have Elon Musk looking in a completely different direction.
Well,
Straight up. The Guardian report on this merger between SpaceX and xAI is, honestly, it reads like science fiction.
it does, but the financial implications are very real. We are talking about a merger valuing the combined entity at $1.25 trillion.
What's with a T?
A $1 trillion private company.
Yes. A valuation is insane, but the rationale is what stuck with me. The announcement claims that Earth literally cannot sustain the power and cooling demands of future AI without imposing hardship on communities and the environment.
It's a bold claim, but if you look at the physics, there's a logic to it. Data centers generate heat, a lot of heat, and they consume water for cooling. Musk's argument is that as these models get exponentially larger, remember that missing middle Jassy is betting on, the thermal output will become unmanageable on the surface.
So the solution is space-based AI, solar-powered server farms orbiting the planet.
That's the pitch. Space is cold,
Mm.
very cold. You solve the cooling problem instantly. You have unlimited solar power without atmospheric interference, so you don't need to burn coal or drain local power grids. They're calling it the only way to scale in the long term.
It creates this kind of vertical integration that's hard to even comprehend. SpaceX controls the launch capacity, which is the bottleneck for getting hardware to orbit.
Mhm.
xAI controls the models. If you merge them, you theoretically own the entire stack for the next generation of compute.
Theoretically, there are massive technical hurdles, of course. Latency, the time it takes for a signal to go up and come back down, is a big one. Radiation shielding for the chips. Maintenance. You can't just send a guy in a van to fix a broken server rack.
Right.
But if anyone has the capital and the, let's say, reckless optimism to try it, it's Musk.
Speaking of reckless optimism, or maybe just eccentricity, did you catch the detail in the Guardian report about the IPO timing?
Oh, I did. This is where the financial analysis has to take a little detour into astrology.
I laughed out loud when I read this. The report says they're targeting an IPO for early summer to coincide with two specific events. One is Elon Musk's 55th birthday. Okay, a bit narcissistic, but fine. But the second event,
A specific planetary alignment of Jupiter and Venus.
you cannot make this stuff up. We're talking about a $1.25 trillion financial transaction, arguably one of the biggest in history, being timed to planetary alignment.
It adds a layer of, let's call it mystique. It's very on brand for Musk. It signals that this isn't just a company, it's a destiny. But whether it's Amazon digging up the earth or Musk looking to the stars, the theme is the same. The infrastructure for AI is going to cost an absolute fortune, and the biggest players are all in.
It's a massive gamble on growth, but while the tech giants are spending on the future, we're seeing government spending to try and fix the present. Which brings us back down to earth, specifically to Japan.
Yes, the political shifts there are fascinating right now. We have a report from the Straits Times about the recent election landslide.
Prime Minister Sanai Takaichi, they're calling her the Iron Lady of Japan.
A little nod to Margaret Thatcher. And the markets absolutely loved her victory. The Nikkei 225 jumped nearly 6% to hit a record high.
That is a huge move for a major index. Usually elections make markets nervous, so what's driving that optimism?
Spending. Again, it comes down to capital deployment. Takaichi campaigned on a platform of strategic spending. She's promising massive government investment in three key areas: AI, semiconductors, and defense.
It's all connected, isn't it? The chip gear makers like Advantest were up 15% on the news. Investors see her as the catalyst for Japan re-entering the tech arms race alongside the US and China.
Exactly. And the defense stocks, like Mitsubishi Heavy Industries, also rallied. It's a signal that Japan is moving towards a more aggressive fiscal policy spending money to stimulate growth and security.
But there's always a trade-off in economics. You can't just turn on the money printer without consequences. The yen took a hit, right?
It weakened significantly.
Yep.
And this is the double-edged sword for Japan. A weak yen is great for massive exporters like Toyota or Sony.
Yeah.
Their cars and PlayStations become cheaper for foreign buyers, so their profits go up. That drives the stock market higher.
But for the regular person living in Tokyo or Osaka,
It's tough. Japan imports almost all its energy and a lot of its food. When the yen drops, the price of gasoline, electricity, groceries, it all goes up. So you have this divergence. The stock market is popping champagne, but the household budget is getting squeezed.
that squeeze is something Americans are feeling too, especially when it comes to housing. Which brings us to the other $200 billion figure I mentioned at the top. This time, it's the White House making the move.
Right. We're looking at this report from MarketWise about President Trump's latest housing strategy.
So walk us through the mechanics here. The headline is that Trump directed his representatives to buy $200 billion in mortgage bonds. The stated goal is to lower mortgage rates.
It's a form of quantitative easing, specifically targeting the housing sector. Think of it this way. Mortgage rates are determined by the price of mortgage-backed securities. If the government steps in and buys $200 billion worth of them, the demand goes up.
And when demand goes up,
The yield or the interest rate goes down.
it's manipulating the market to make loans cheaper. And initially, we saw that reaction. Mortgage rates dipped to 5.99% briefly.
And the housing stocks loved it. Lennar, D.R. Horton, Zillow, they all spiked because investors thought, okay, lower rates mean more home buyers.
But, and there's always a but with these interventions, many economists and analysts are calling this a sugar high.
That's the perfect term for it.
Yeah.
A sugar high. It feels good for a minute, you get a burst of energy, and then you crash.
Why the crash?
Because of the fundamental law of supply and demand. Buying mortgage bonds artificially lowers the cost of borrowing. It makes money cheaper. But it does not build a single new house. It doesn't change zoning laws. It doesn't put more carpenters on job sites.
So you're juicing demand by making loans cheaper, but the supply of homes is exactly the same.
Exactly. And when you have more money chasing the same amount of goods, what happens?
Prices go up.
You just inflate the asset.
So the monthly payment might look better on paper because the rate is lower, but the actual price of the house just rises to absorb that difference.
That is the risk. MarketWise quoted analysts saying exactly that. If inventory stays low, affordability doesn't actually improve. In fact, it can get worse because you create a bidding war.
And there's another layer too, right? The bond market itself.
Yes, mortgage rates are tied to the 10-year Treasury yield. If the bond market looks at this $200 billion spending spree and thinks, wait, this is inflationary, they'll panic and sell off other bonds. Yields will go up, and mortgage rates will march right back up with them.
The market has a way of correcting these things. It feels like we're seeing this theme across the board today. Massive interventions. Amazon forcing the AI market, Japan forcing industrial growth, the U.S. forcing mortgage rates. With all this manipulation and spending, where are investors actually putting their safe money?
That is the big question. And we have a fascinating report from State Street's monthly gold monitor that shows a very clear, very telling trend.
Let me guess. Bitcoin. Everyone I talk to says crypto is the future of money, the hedge against inflation.
You would think so, especially with the digital gold narrative that's been pushed for years. But the data says the opposite right now. State Street highlighted a massive divergence. Bitcoin ETFs are seeing record consecutive months of outflows. Money is leaving the crypto space.
Okay, so if they aren't buying digital gold, are they buying actual gold?
They are. Gold is seeing record inflows, trading around $4,500 to $5,000 an ounce. But what's most interesting is who is buying it. It's not just retail investors buying coins, it's the official sector, central banks.
Which countries specifically?
Poland is a huge buyer right now. They're explicitly aiming for 700 tons of reserves for national security. China and Brazil are also buying heavily.
Poland makes sense. I mean, they're right next door to a war zone in Ukraine.
Exactly. When central banks start hoarding physical gold bars, it tells you something. They are hedging against geopolitical instability, sanction risks, and currency devaluation. They are choosing physical safety, an asset that has no counterparty risk, that you can hold in a vault over digital risk.
That is a pretty strong signal. The people who run the money printers are buying the one thing they can't print.
It really puts the tech utopia narrative we discussed earlier into perspective. Amazon and Musk are building the future, but the central bankers are hedging against it falling apart.
Speaking of things falling apart or coming together, we need to talk about leadership. Because while money moves markets, people move companies. We have two very different corporate stories today.
A tale of two CEOs. One is a strategic hiring, and one is a chaotic resignation.
Let's start with the good news. Kroger.
Yes, the grocery giant. They hired Greg Foran as their new CEO. The market loved it. The stock popped 6% on the news.
I know that name. He's the guy who turned around Walmart US, right? And before that, he was running Air New Zealand.
That's him. And his background is exactly why investors are so excited. He has the playbook. He knows how to operate at massive scale. And more importantly, he knows how to execute a digital transformation in a grocery setting.
So the hope is that he can use the Walmart strategy to fight Walmart.
It's a tactical hire. Get the guy who built the enemy's best weapon. It's a very clear strategic signal to the market that Kroger is serious about competing on efficiency and digital integration.
Now, contrast that with the situation at the Washington Post. This report from The Guardian was pretty bleak. Publisher Will Levis resigned abruptly.
Very abruptly. And the context here is brutal. This happened just days after he laid off nearly a third of the staff, over 300 journalists.
That is a massive cut for a newsroom. But it wasn't just the layoffs, right? It was how he handled it.
Yes. The report mentioned he was heavily criticized for being absent during the announcement. While the layoffs were rolling out and people were losing their livelihoods, reports surfaced that he was elsewhere.
At the Super Bowl festivities.
Exactly. It created a perception of being completely out of touch. His resignation letter cited the need to step aside after 2 years of transformation, but the timing right after such a morale-shattering event suggests a total collapse of leadership trust.
It's a reminder that corporate strategy isn't just about the balance sheet. It's about culture. You can't lead a transformation if you lose the room.
And you certainly can't lead if your team feels you're partying while they're packing up their desks.
Yeah.
It's a stark contrast to the optimism around the Kroger hire. One leader brings credibility, the other lost it.
Since you mentioned Will Levis was at the Super Bowl, we have to talk about the commercials. We have a list here from Bored Panda of the cringiest ads from 2026.
You know, after discussing trillion-dollar mergers, national housing policy, and geopolitical gold hoarding, it is somewhat comforting to know that brands are still spending obscene amounts of money on absolute nonsense.
The price tag is the first thing that shocked me. $10 million.
Between $8 and $10 million for a 30-second spot, it is the most expensive attention in the world.
And what did they buy with that money? Let's run through a few of these. Pringles.
Ah, yes. The Pringles ad featuring Sabrina Carpenter. The premise. She built a boyfriend out of potato chips.
She does. And then he gets eaten. It's weirdly dark if you think about it too much.
It is a bit disturbing. Love hurts, I suppose. But not as disturbing as the Kellogg's Raisin Bran commercial.
Oh, no. This one, they got William Shatner.
A legend, Captain Kirk himself.
And the entire and millions of dollars of production and airtime was based on a single pun. Will Shat.
Because of the fiber.
Because of the fiber. I mean, I get it. It's memorable. But is it good?
It's certainly direct. It cuts through the noise. But if we're talking about cutting through the noise, we have to mention the Mike Tyson PSA.
That was for healthy eating, right?
Yes, warning people about fat, nasty processed foods.
Yeah.
Hearing Mike Tyson use the phrase fat and nasty to describe a burger is effective marketing. It's genuinely terrifying.
I would definitely put down the burger if Mike Tyson told me to. I value my ears too much. And then there's Coinbase. They went the complete opposite direction.
Minimalism. No celebrities. Just Backstreet Boys lyrics on the screen for a sing-along.
Everybody.
Yeah. Exactly. It's a fascinating juxtaposition. We spent this whole deep dive talking about AI superintelligence, space colonization, and quantum computing. And yet, when companies want to reach actual human beings, what do?
They make poop jokes with William Shatner.
They resort to puns, celebrities, and nostalgia. It proves that no matter how advanced our technology gets, we're still simple creatures at heart.
There's a deep human truth in that. So let's try to tie this all together. We've covered a massive spectrum today.
We have. We've looked at the big spend Amazon's $200 billion bet on the middle of the barbell. We've seen the galactic merger with Musk trying to move our compute off-planet to solve the energy crisis.
We've seen Japan spending to regain its industrial edge and the U.S. government spending to try and manipulate mortgage rates.
And in the background, you have central banks quietly moving into gold, hedging against the instability that all this rapid change might bring.
It all comes down to capital allocation. Everyone, from Andy Jassy to the head of the Central Bank of Poland, is placing a bet on what the future looks like. Jassy is betting the future is AI enterprise software. Musk is betting the future is in space. Poland is betting the future might be chaotic and gold is safe.
And Trump is betting that bond purchases can fix affordability without fixing supply.
Right. But here's the provocative thought I want to leave everyone with today.
Let's hear it.
We spent a lot of time on Andy Jassy's barbell analogy. He is spending $200 billion, an unthinkable amount of money, to build infrastructure for that middle section, the corporate demand that hasn't arrived yet.
Right.
What happens to the global economy if he builds it and they don't come? What if the efficiency gains of AI are real, but the massive, power-hungry enterprise applications just don't scale the way they think?
You mean, what if we have trillions of dollars of data centers on Earth and in space just sitting idle?
Exactly. We are assuming the demand is infinite, but if it's not, we're looking at the biggest capital misallocation in history. A bubble that wouldn't just pop, it would explode.
That is a terrifying thought to end on.
Uh-huh.
But it's the $200 billion question, isn't it? Is this the Transcontinental Railroad laying the foundation for a new era? Or is it the Dutch tulip craze, just with better graphics?
Only time will tell. Well, on that note, we want you to think about where your own capital is flowing. Are you buying the dip? Are you buying gold bars like the Central Bank of Poland? Or are you just buying some Raisin Bran?
I think I'll stick with the Pringles.
Fair enough. Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. We'll catch you next time.